Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this latest episode of 10,000 Tacos. My name's Isidro Salas, and today we're going to be talking about something kind of cool for many reasons. There is something magical about combining ingredients to make delicious plates, right? It's like creating a work of art out of a meal. And just like an artist, you can use different seasonings to create different flavors. For me, though, the magic comes from watching others add a healthy dash of pepper, a muscle memory pinch of salt, or a blind handful of oregano to make a magical plate. To watch others do it with a mental measuring spoon of sorts and be confident that the food will come out mouthwatering. So how do you describe that magic? How do you tell others about it in a way that makes their minds wander? There is both magic and method behind that. What is the magic behind that? Have you ever asked yourself? Is it experience? Is it national origin? Is it gender? Is it regional? There is such a word in Spanish to describe that magical method. Its literal translation is seasoning, which is sazon. And I love the way that sounds, sazon. But sazon has a more powerful meaning in our culture than just seasoning. Some may say that sazon comes with a punch. Others may describe sazon as a zing. It is a flavor that takes your taste buds on a journey that you'll never forget. Sazon is an emotional journey that involves chemistry, artistry, and mental calculations with our hands. Once again, my name's Isidro Salas, and I'm the proud son of a taquero. With me is my co-host, Jose Ralat. What's up, man? Ready to talk about some sazon?
I'm so ready to talk about sazon. I think this is a thought-provoking subject. I was thinking about this internet meme that goes something like, Mexicans don't measure seasonings. They sprinkle and shake until the spirits of their ancestors come to them and say, "Ya, mija," but probably not with that accent.
No. It comes with the chancla, too.
It comes with the chancla, yeah. But also one of the things that I would say inspired this show was a tweet from our friend, your fellow Denverite, Obed Manuel. Mm-hmm. And it read, "Look, it's real simple. Don't buy Mexican food from people who aren't Mexican." Now, the tweet was in response to an online menu that listed beans as an add-on, but it was written as frijole. That's Mexican for bean. Not only is that grammatically incorrect, it's frustrating. I get it. That line is really demeaning, but there's more to the statement. It pushes the question, who makes or who can make Mexican food? Who can make good Mexican food? Frankly, I think Obed is wrong or was wrong. Anyone can make any food. It's how they do it and why and who benefits from the food that I think is a deeper issue, perhaps for another time. But I should add, I have repeatedly asked Obed to join us on audio platforms. He's declined every time. So that's why he's not here to defend himself.
Let's get back to the topic because Obed, yeah, he's gently declined to meet up with him. I think he's just got a newborn too, but this was done beforehand.
Yes.
So, yeah, let's get back to the topic.
So, Obed wasn't the only thing I was thinking about when it comes to this subject, there is a little something, there's a kernel of truth. And I think that you can better explain how recipes aren't always passed down.
I haven't asked and I haven't bumped into a lot of journals that speak to this, but I believe Mexican moms never give you a recipe. And it's unintentional. It's not like they want to hoard information. But every time I've asked my mom for something, like, she'll tell you how to do it, right? She'll want to show you how to do it, right? If you're in the kitchen with her, and she'll tell you that this and that, and and it's all discombobulated, right? And so one of the things that she has told me repeatedly, though, through that process is, and in Spanish, is la mano de cada persona is different. You can all follow the same steps, but the individual hand of everybody's unique. And how do you put that in a recipe, right? It's the hand, la mano, that gives you that confidence. And so what are some benefits to cooking without measuring cups or spoons? It led me to ask some of those questions because, on one end, they're trying to teach you, your parents or your mom is trying to teach you, your grandmother's trying to teach you, but I don't know, they never took classes like we have today. They didn't have YouTube, right? So one of the benefits...
Pronounce it properly.
Huh?
YouTube.
YouTube. But one of the benefits to cooking without measuring spoons, and that I think they don't speak to this, but I could relate to that, is that it gives you more freedom to cook whatever, right? To kind of use your curiosity and to take advantage of your own senses, right? When you cook by somebody's recipes, you're following their footsteps. It doesn't leave room for creativity because you're afraid to do it wrong. Well, when you do it just by hand, creativity is one of the most fascinating things that our brains have, right? Because it leads us to so many roads that it just that's for a different show. But the other benefit is reconnecting with the way we used to cook since the dawn of the tortillas. How did people used to cook before? But they didn't follow recipes. How can you carve something on a rock? Right? It was all passed down by watching, right? And then again, this to the first point is it builds intuition, right, into the process. Like you have a feeling like if I do a little bit of this, it might taste like that, right? It goes with that curiosity. I believe it builds that intuition muscle. And the other point that I wanted to make is you hear this a lot in sports, that practice makes perfect. In the kitchen, there's no such thing as perfection. I don't think you could practice all you want, but a dish, of course people say, oh, that tastes perfect. It is not, right? That's not the intention. And a little later, we'll talk about what the difference is of what I see as like the American way of cooking, recipes. And, for what I know is the Mexican way of cooking. And again, that's pretty broad because I didn't grow up in Mexico. I was born in Mexico, but I didn't grow up there. So anyway.
Well, I think you're right about practice that does not make perfect, but how did your wife perfect her salsa recipe?
Well, that's a very good question. She just followed the footsteps that my mom showed her. Exactly. And here's the thing. My mom doesn't speak Scottish.
For everyone who doesn't know, Isidro's wife is from Scotland, born and raised.
Yeah. And over there, pepper is spicy.
It is.
And so she just followed it to the T. And my wife is that type of person. She will follow a recipe if you give it to her. But in this case, she couldn't because there was none. And not only that, there was a language barrier. So my mom was making all the salsa even the way she peels her tomatillos. My wife was like, that's the way you got to do it. Right. And it's interesting that it doesn't have the same flavor as my mom's, but it was good enough. And one of the things that before my dad passed away, he had tasted it and, I believed him. My dad, he's a pretty honest guy. He said it tasted pretty good. I don't think my dad would have lied. And some of my family members had tasted it and I'm hoping they're telling the truth. I tasted it and it was It has been always very good. But there is no recipe. She didn't write anything down. She just does it the way my mom taught her, or showed her rather.
Right. So the thing about recipes is they should only be guides. To your point, a recipe is very rigid. The way we eat is not. Our taste buds, our spice tolerance are all very different, right? But recipes are only snapshots. It's a specific image of the time and the place that they were written in, right? In a professional setting with the highest quality equipment. That can't be replicated. So, my question is, well, and why the hell do we have cookbooks? But what do we do? Obviously, your mom didn't have a recipe, but what does everyone else do?
Well, the obvious, I think, is there's a little bit of capitalism in here, right? Because people write books so they can sell. And I do believe they're well-intentioned. They do want to pass along some knowledge. But again, going back to the beginning, what is the difference between seasoning and sazon? Sazon is cultural. They're literally the same meaning. But sazon comes with that punch. And I don't know how you could write that on a book. Now, and I don't even know, like, this is going to be a little controversial, but who buys those books?
Right. That's not controversial. That's a valid question.
Well, the reason I say it's controversial because I'll say it's white people. They want to learn how to cook Mexican. They want to learn. They want that secret to sazon, and they think they could read it. They think they could get it off of YouTube. And
again,
YouTube.
Pronounce it correctly.
YouTube. Right? And it goes back to some of those gripes and grievances that I have. Yeah, you want the Mexican food, but you don't want the Mexicans. And I know that's overgeneralizing it. And I don't want to take this on a different turn, but it does. I get irritated when people ask me for a taco recipe. And I try not to show it, but there is no taco recipe, right? Because there's no just one taco. There's no... a carne asada taco is different than an al pastor. People have
and they'll taste different depending on how you cook them. Is it gas? Is it electric? Is it a grill fired by wood or propane?
Yeah.
These change everything.
Yeah, and of course you have, again, going back to capitalism, what has the majority of sport fans around the world have seen, right? Taco Bell commercials. And they hear the word Taco Bell, they see just ground beef. They see these things, and they think that that's Mexican food because that's the message. So when you want to recreate that at home, then they go to the store and say, oh, wow, this looks like a taco shell. This looks like ground. Oh, look, taco seasoning here, right? That's why taco sazon wouldn't sell. White people be like, I don't know, man. I just, it doesn't say seasoning. I don't know. So there is a difference, and it does diverge. And going back to cookbooks, people, they want a shortcut. That's my opinion. They want a shortcut. This is why we're doing this work. This is why you, Jose, go into these taquerias and ask for permission to speak to the taquero, the taqueras, the families, right? Read the stories. And something magical happens, I believe, when you read the stories, when you get to know somebody. I do believe that there's this like transfer of information that goes on when you sit down and listen to somebody telling you of how they crossed the border or what they use. You get some of that sense. I do believe that. I know this, I can't prove it, but my wife makes her salsa good because she decided that it was important to fall in love, not just with me, but with my family. I believe that. And we talk about that a lot, the hidden ingredients into what goes into a taco, a burrito, a whatever plato de combinación. are these little things, right? And I think that's a little bit of sazon.
I always get a kick out of the fact that people want to make Mexican food at home, but then they're not willing to put in the work. Because let's say you buy a Mexican cookbook. The recipes say they're simple, but it's going to take you a while to do it. It's not simple. It is not easy. It is labor intensive, and it requires, I think, a little creativity and patience.
I love what Elizabeth has to say real quick. Sazón también es el sentimiento con el que haces la comida, which translates seasoning, sazón, is the feeling which you make the food with. I hope I'm translating it correctly, but I mean, that's...
Yeah.
So thank you, Elizabeth.
What you're saying is, if you're having a bad day, you're going to make bad food.
You hear it a lot. Cook with love.
You say, if you don't make it with love, then it's not being made right. Love is the main ingredient. What is love? Love is sazon.
Yeah, and along with that, there's also this thing when if you ever walk into a Mexican house or you go to a taqueria or somewhere like a friend's house and you go and taste the salsa and it's freaking hot, you're like, damn, moms must have been pissed. It's the same thing. Like people say that, like, well, like, hey, estás enojada or what? It's a way to punish your husband if he stays out late. I don't know.
A lot of people think that Mexican food is spicy. That's not true.
Nope. Indian food is spicy. Intentional.
Thai food is spicy.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's built in, but Mexican food is not.
Yeah, because the spice is adjustable according to taste.
Or you could put it on the side.
Yeah. Now, I've been to some places in West Texas where they serve classic Tex-Mex, and holy smokes, there are some places where I've been unable to take more than 3 or 4 bites.
You know what I also love about that? Like the spiciness. When you cook with spice and it's not spicy, but some of the names, just like sazon and seasoning, for example, enchilada, right? It insinuates it's spicy. Enchilar is right? But you can make an enchilada sauce that is not spicy at all. Good as heck, but it's not spicy. But the name in itself is spicy, right? It's like, what you say is a hot Latina.
Caliente, picosa. No, so you're absolutely right. Because, as we both know, and probably a lot of our listeners know, not every chile is spicy. Mm-hmm. Some have the flavor over the heat, or the spice informs the flavor, but it's not unbearable. The first chile that I think of, when I think of a non-spicy chile, is a poblano, right? 1 in 1,000 is spicy, right? But they don't all have to be spicy. And you can choose to not use a spicy chile. But
some time ago, I released an episode early in the podcast called Chile Resilient. Right? It goes to chile relleno. And I chose the chile relleno because it's resilient. Now, a poblano goes through a transformation in order to become a relleno. And that's like that process is resiliency, right? It gets burned, it gets dipped, it gets cut. And at the end, it gets filled up, right? Relleno. And you put other ingredients in there. But man, if you think about the journey of a chile relleno, as it starts out as a poblano, it's resilience that goes into its flavoring, right? And I know that's stretching a little bit, but that's what I mean about sazon. It's more than just seasoning. Just like a chile relleno, its transformation into a chile relleno, its resilience to survive that process, it speaks a lot about our culture, And that's the beauty of it, that you cannot capture in just the word seasoning or in the poblano by itself. The poblano, it's a beautiful name, right? It's one of the reasons why I hate chipotle, because they took the word chipotle from this beautiful culture and they capitalized on it. Capitalism. It's why I hate that chain. The food is okay, it's not bad, but chipotle is sacred. Poblano is sacred. These things that we've been using to fill our tummies and now indulge in, these were survival foods back in the day. They have a lot of history to them. So when you just take the name and commercialize it for your purposes, you're a freaking bastard.
We will talk more about Chipotle later, but I wanted to talk briefly about cooking competitions and how they influence the home cook and the home cook's idea of Sazon. A few weeks ago on Bravo's Top Chef, which is in Houston this year, they asked everyone to make chile con queso, but to jazz it up, right? And some people turned it into a hard crisp, and they're like, "What the hell? This isn't queso." They had a Houston chef as a guest judge, and it was just one embarrassment after another. There's a very good reason why chile con queso's traditional recipe uses Velveeta. It's chemically a really good melter. It's got that umami, addictive flavor to it. But also, chile con queso is a response to the border being cut off and the market being broken due to the border. Queso fundido, which is Mexican, couldn't be made. And everyone was really, really poor. If you're talking about the border, you're talking about anywhere between 30 to 80% poverty rate. So they didn't have the money to buy these really expensive imported cheese. They could afford Velveeta.
Mm.
All right. So don't mess with chile con queso. All right.
And they screwed it up, and they still screwed it up, right? I mean, but that's an example of, it's a popular show, and people.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't be on the air if it wasn't. It's going on. It's almost like, I think it started in 2005, wasn't it, or 2000?
It's near its 20th season,
right? In years, right? Because sometimes they'll have 2 seasons in 1 year or whatever. But it's
right.
That's an example of how screwed up things have gotten, because the popularity of the show, people want that food, and they see that's how celebrity chefs have become popular, right? Because they attach this image of a person cooking something that they think is delicious. We cannot taste out of our television sets or our phones. We can't. And so people see this, they try to recreate it, and they go to what they know is Google, right? And go, hey, let me do chile con queso or whatever it's called. Sorry to disrespect. I know it's
no,
big
that's
there.
what it's called.
Yeah, and then they see this, and there's thousands of recipes. And here, like, I know we're so used to this, but when you get onto a site that you want to see the steps, the recipe, yet every other scroll is an ad. That's why they're doing it, right? It's an ad. Like, how many recipes do you look up, and whatever site that hits first, you go in there and this ad after ad after ad after ad. It's a freaking business. That's the difference. That's the difference between seasoning and sazon. Sazon, you don't have to do that. You learn that in a different way. Comes in sort of like Avatar. You inject something emotional to you, and you download it like the Matrix. But it takes people connecting with the culture in the right way. And commercially, you can't connect to a culture commercially. You just can't.
And another part of that is some of these recipes are sponsored by major food manufacturers, like, I don't know, McCormick.
Yeah.
And so you're going to get a very uniform flavor profile, right? But where's the sazon? Granted, not everyone has the time to make enchiladas from scratch. But you're right, there is no love in it.
Yeah. I mean, and look, 2 years into this pandemic, where the first 3-4 months were stay at home. Perfect opportunity for people to do that. No, what did they choose instead? DoorDash, Uber Eats.
And beans.
Yeah.
Lots of beans. By the way, we have a whole show about that. So check it out, please.
And again, I don't want to differentiate between white and Mexican. We don't want to go down that road, but there is a difference, right?
Well, you don't even have to be specific. You can just say different cultures cook differently. And
I know we don't live in those times, but I do believe that a lot of the example you gave about when the border shut down and, they had to resort to other means, Mexicans use the word survival a lot more because in our case, we had to survive. Our parents taught us how to survive because we weren't wanted in this country. Even though we were Mexican and this part of Mexico was Mexico at some point, we weren't, we had to survive in different means. And so cooking took on a different meaning. It was to survive. We sold food to survive. And what I see is white people, they don't cook to survive. They cook to impress. They cook to sell. Right? And I know that's overgeneralized.
Appropriation.
Yeah. Mexicans, when they open a restaurant for the community. They open a restaurant to feed the masses, to, they don't open it to show off. They open it to survive, to run a business, but they think of the community. Whereas when I see white people opening up a Mexican restaurant, like anybody could open up any kind of restaurant they want or whatever. When I see white people opening up a Mexican restaurant, they put the money before, they put the dollar before the taste, right? They use the word Mexican food to get the crowds in there, and they get away with it. And that's what upsets me about that's sazon and seasoning, two different things. Seasoning sells. Sazon doesn't. And we need to change that. It'll benefit everybody.
When I think about sazon, I think about salsa, and then I want to dance. But how about we open it up? We have several people, I think, who want to talk.
Yeah, Elizabeth, you had a few comments. We haven't heard from you in a while.
Hi, good morning. Oh my gosh, this conversation is like so interesting. And I was behind the screen. I was like, yes, no, yes, andaba yo ahí con ustedes. But yeah, there is a difference. I remember my mom decía, when you cook your food con sazon, with love, your mood, like la comida te sale bien, your food comes out really good. And I would see that. I remember she had asked me to, with some help from chile rellenos. I remember I was like a teen. I don't know what I was mad about. But, the batter, the egg batter, with the flour, it wasn't coming out. I mean, no se estaba espesando, it wasn't setting. And my mom's like, it's because you're mad. Here, let me do it for you. And yeah, I mean, it is true. You think it's like a myth or something, but no, it is true. And then, the way you make your food, it just, the flavor, I mean, there is a difference, sazon and seasoning. There is like a difference for me right there. And, because I grew up, with my mom telling me this. And my dad tells me, tú tienes el sazón de tu mamá, like the way your mom cooks, like that flavor of your mom, and so I'm happy that he tells me that, because I do have her cookbooks, upon before passing away. She told me, these are gonna be for you. And so, but in the chiles, oh my God, don't get me started on the chiles. Yes, different chiles add different flavors to the guisados, to the food. And there are the spicy ones, there's not the spicy ones. The queso with chile, you guys were talking about that. And I remember when my dad and my uncles would come to watch soccer games, my mom would do her version of a queso con chile, which will be chile verdes cortados a lo largo, like not chop them, but
Would that be
Rajas.
rajas?
in rajas, cut them in rajas. There we go. And then she would get queso fresco, but she would cut them in like thick. I would say maybe like an inch or so of thickness, or half an inch. And she would put really low heat on the sartén, and she would put the chiles first face down, and then the queso on top. And then she would also add some epazote on top, and she would put the lid on so that cheese can start melting a little, and then she'll flip them, so that way the queso can have that chile flavor. And let me tell you guys, I mean, I still do that. With my daughters. One of them eats not too much spice, the other one does. So you know how there's the chiles, the ones that you use, like the ones that I was telling you with the rajas, but then there's like the thicker ones that really don't have much spice. So I use that, with my other daughter. But yeah, I mean, let me tell you, for us, like snacking and seeing, my dad and, mis tíos snacking on those while they were eating that. I mean, with the homemade tortilla, it was, oh my God, my mouth is getting watery. But yes. And, I totally agree.
Well, thanks for sharing.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
You're always welcome. Now, Rodrigo, dale.
Wow, why did you say it like that? That's I feel like I'm under pressure now. I had a couple points.
It is Sazon.
I had a couple points. he added Sazon to it. Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, that's a song for your introduction.
He did, right, Elizabeth? I heard that.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of which, I'm in Vegas right now in Southern Utah, and the tacos over here are pretty good, y'all, pretty good. But to y'all's points, I wanted to bring up two items that just kind of resonated with me regarding the points that you're making. The first one is I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book about my mom. The book is called How to Make Queso Fresco. And it's really a story about my mom, but she is teaching me her recipes and specifically how to make queso fresco. And the second chapter of the book, it says, it basically starts off, every chapter starts with the one line from the recipe, right? And it basically starts off with saying, tienes que calentar la leche, pero no mucha que no se queme. And the way that my mom measures it is by actually, getting a little bit on the spoon and then placing it on her wrist, which is the most unscientific way to do it. I measure everything. I do the ounces. I have measuring cups, everything. My mom, nombre, le pone cuchara. She gets a little spoonful, this, and that. And so that to me, yeah, I can't replicate that. Every time I make the cheese, I think it's good. My mom thinks it's good, but she always has to find a little, no le falta esto, no le tiene mucho esto, whatever, right? But I can definitely see why it's so important that somebody who is really that knows, is passionate about the food, that teaches you how to cook that food. In college, I remember one of my assignments was, does your professor have to be Russian to teach you Russian? And we had a kind of a debate about that. And what I took away from it was, yes, anybody that knows, Russian could teach me how to speak Russian. But it's that Russian speaker, that person that was born there, that's going to give me those nuances, that's going to give me those idiosyncrasies that you hear, those the phrases and all that stuff. I think that's why it is important for me, at least, that the person that is teaching me something is of that. I don't want secondhand information. And then the last point I want to make, I think I'm probably on the other side. I think maybe even aligned with Jose, where I really don't mind the quote unquote these behemoths like Chipotle taking it over. I feel like it's always an educational opportunity for me. When somebody says like, "Oh, I like Chipotle," I go, "Really, man? Let me take you over here, man, because that's okay. But let me take you to some real Mexican food. Let me take you over there. Let me do this. Let me do that." It's always an opportunity for me, at least. The one thing that I definitely am a staunch defender of is appropriation, is when they take over something and not give it that love. That's when I definitely will defend it and will gatekeep my culture, because I don't want that to be appropriated or stolen from me and profiteered in a way that is disrespectful to me and my ancestors.
I don't know. I think that I could teach English, and I'm not a native speaker.
You're American.
I was born American, yeah, but
I love what
Spanish was my
Rodrigo
first language.
said, though, about because I've seen this in a lot of households, is when the mothers, the cooks, the abuelitas, use their wrists to put something and then to taste it. You know, it's a taste as you go, but it's always the wrist. And again, I came from Mexico. I was 6 years old, and so I try to keep as much as español que puedo. I try to, but it seems like it's the wrist that they use to put a little bit on there and to taste it, or either that or the little bit of a palm. But it's mostly the wrist. So I've seen that happen lots of times.
Yeah, my mom would do that. Sometimes she would do it on the wrist, but she would do it on like on the very bottom of the palm of her hand, or on the top of her cuando haces un puño,
Mm-hmm.
and like on the top, then she would do it there, and I was like, well, why can't she get a spoon and then just try it? There was something about that. Now that I'm a mom myself, and moms, I don't know if your moms will tell you this, but my mom would tell me, "Cuando estés grande, you're gonna do the same thing, and you'll understand. Y me vas a entender." Do I understand? Yeah, because I do that. I do that, and then with the measurements, we already know. When you have that practice of how much sazon, or in this case the sazon and seasoning, you add to the food, you already have that. And I remember I would tell my mom, well, why didn't you measure it? My mom would laugh at me, because I would measure everything like to its like perfection grain. If it was something that to like salt or sugar, I mean, my mom would laugh at me. She's like, no, tanteale, there, that's the word,
Tantearle,
tantear.
tantear.
And she's like, I can tantearle, and then we would like try the food and then tantearle tantito, and so I'm trying to see how that word can translate in English. But yeah, and do I do that now? Yes. And my daughters now tell me, it's like, Mom, how come you don't use the measurement? I'm like, oh, I already know, ya sé, nada más se le va tanteando. And I was like, oh my God, I'm busting on mom here.
Yeah.
And I do tell them, I'm like, when you are older, once like the measurements of a guisado or comida, you girls will know, how much you won't need that anymore, and yeah,
You
it's
know
true.
it when you taste it. I think
Yes.
you see that a lot in shows. Like you'll know it when you see it, and it sounds so broad, and people go, "Oh, here we go." But there's something magical. That's why when we were bringing up this episode, there's so many things we wanted to do and so many directions we wanted to go into it. But there is some magic behind it. The magic hand, la mano, un puño de esto, un poquito de esto, right? Even titling this dabs, pinches, and handfuls, right? I thought, what if we led with pinches?
So yeah, I was just gonna ask. Are you sure it's not pinches?
It's not pizcas. You know how sometimes they go, oh, una pizca de sal. But I was like, yeah, but a pizca, how much of a
I
sal?
thought the show was going to be about CBD and weed and stuff, but
Oh my gosh,
See,
Rodrigo.
there's magic to that too.
Yes, there is. So, when I learned how to make pernil, which is Puerto Rican roast pork using pork shoulder or pork butt, my mother's instructions about applying the adobo were, and I quote, "And then You massage the pork like you're making love to it. And it was, I mean, it was a awkward moment.
You said
But-
it. You said it kind of creepy too.
Well, I mean,
And then you massage it like you're making love to it.
but she's right, and that's the same principle, right? It's if you don't do it like you mean it, like you want to, then it's not going to come out all right. And the recipe that she gave me, I've learned, is actually wrong.
But
She doesn't add enough salt.
But you're right in that massage it like you're, how she said. I have memories of walking into where my dad used to work at a butcher shop, and he was making chorizo in this big tub, and he would make a lot before they cased it, right? And there were all these ingredients. I remember mustard was a key ingredient, right? That's why when I make hot links, when I cook them over and I put mustard on top, it's like one of the best flavors. I don't see other people doing it. I know it's done, but it's not, people don't play with that. Like mustard with hot links that's all you need. That's all you need when you're eating, right? But when I would watch my dad, the earliest memories I have as a kid of walking into the carniceria where he was making it, was him really getting into mixing with both of his hands. He'd be on his knees, and I just, he'd be on his knees, just like really kneeling into it, right? Like getting into it. And I gotta say, like, chorizo is flavorful, right? Even the people that don't know how to make it, chorizo is flavorful. But when you make it from scratch, when you make it from like that, I do believe that the energy that he was putting into it made it what it was. And I have not tasted that type of chorizo in many years. Like it's hard to find it. You can't find it at Whole Foods. So I do believe in that. It's not just el sazon with the mano putting it in. It's also the las ganas que les pones, right? That's another word, ganas, and they're all connected to cooking and to living, and that's why this is a very passionate subject. Sazon is different than seasoning.
I can just imagine Rodrigo saying, "Dale, dale, dale," as he's seasoning something.
What?
Yes. Yeah.
I love
What he's
teasing you,
seasoning is
man.
different.
Wow.
What he's seasoning is different, or sazonanzo, or whatever.
Awesome.
Well, let's start wrapping it up. Man.
Yeah, the faco of the week is chipotle. I told you all it would come back up. So they have this robot. It's called Chippy. You can probably figure out what Chippy does. Chippy makes chips. Deliberately imperfect chips. They're trying to get as close to what a human might do. I think that's ridiculous. I don't want one chip to be perfectly salted and the other one not be salted or just be half salted. When I want chips, I want great chips. I don't want so-so chips. And I think making tortillas, or tortilla chips, I should say, totopos, are better handmade. I'm just going to go out and say that. And you're right. Chipotle just wants the money. They took someone's job away.
Yeah, where are those freedom truckers that are driving around wasting gas, talking about how, automation is going to take their jobs? Where the fuck are they when it comes to fighting for this? Right? So it's a total hypocrisy. But going back to Chipotle, right? This is just son puras pinches mamadas that you have to make a fucking machine. If you look at some of the pictures on here, they're like in a lab, and it's an electronic arm. Again, I did safety for a lot of years, and I had the fortune of going into laboratories, of seeing where they're experimenting with like electrical stuff. I worked at IBM down in South San Jose for a little bit, and I saw some technological advances, right? And a lot of them involved robotic arms. I will tell you, that involves a shitload of money, a lot of money to program it, to operate it, the material, and then that's just testing. Why the F would you want to test something and make a robotic arm to make chips? It's one of the easiest things to do, to cut up tortillas into little triangles. It is simple as, I don't want to equate it to certain things that we do in the simple things, but
yeah, right. It's
stupid. It's stupid because
right. It's
white people will go. White people will be like, this is great. Look, the innovation. Shut the fuck up. Sorry, gets me mad.
It's cheaper to teach a teenager and underpay that teenager than it is to build a freaking robot.
Yeah.
To make chips.
So once again, Chipotle strikes again. Facos again. And again, a Faco is something or someone who capitalizes or misappropriates the word taco in the culture. So Chipotles are Facos.
And this can be a more appropriate Faco for a show on Sazon. And we didn't plan this. It just showed up, and I was immediately upset. So do you want to take the talk vote, or do you want me to take
Do you
the
take
talk
it, man? Sounds
All
better
right.
when you say it.
You don't always get the taco you want. Sometimes you get a taco you need. Honestly, not every taco has to be great. Sometimes you just need or you just want something that's good enough, that makes you happy enough, that sates your appetite, that keeps you going through the day.
Or night.
Or night, yeah. Oh, well, at night, once you're drinking and your taste buds are shot, who cares what you eat, man? It doesn't matter. But, yeah, sometimes great isn't necessary, and greatness is fleeting. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. And say, in the meantime, you can follow me on social media platforms at Taco Trail, and Isidro at numeral 0 K Tacos, 10K Tacos.
Gracias for that.
What? Oh, you're welcome.
Well, thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Your comments and your presence here is special to us, so we appreciate it. And thanks again, Jose. Thanks for another great show, man.
Running up the visa, really talking to a real life Mona Lisa. Jesus pieces hanging off the fleecer. So much going on, it's hard to focus on the features. I got too many, I'm going too crazy, and I got bad ones and they ready. A good time, so now it's into it, we left that. Can't remember anything, but I know we got lit.